took notes during it. I don't even know what they mean.
Oh.
This one just says, one boy is dead, the other is destroyed for life. What does that mean? The brother, right?
No, because he was doing some kind of surgery on the kid who got shot, and he was like really upset about it because the same thing happened to his brother.
Oh, yeah. Did he say it like that? Why did I write it?
No, he said it like that.
We watched it just 3 days ago?
Yeah.
I've forgotten a lot.
Oh, okay.
I am unprepared. On that note, welcome everybody to a very special episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Unprepared Indy Randhawa, and I'm alongside my lovely co-host, superfan Samantha Randhawa.
That makes me sound like a crazy person.
No, that you're just a fan.
I'm a fan.
You've talked about this movie/book in 3 different episodes.
True.
This will be the 4th. And you've read much of Colleen Hoover's oeuvre. Does she have an oeuvre?
No.
I don't know much about her.
I don't know what an oeuvre is either.
But you've read multiple books of hers.
I have, yes.
And you like Blake Lively very much, I think.
I do, yeah.
I think you're a super fan.
I guess I'm a super fan.
And you also chose this movie, It Ends With Us, to do on a podcast called I Love This, You Should Too. So kind of seems like you're a fan.
I am a fan.
All right. And, look what I did there. I explained to everyone what we're doing today.
Oh.
So you loved this movie after seeing it in theaters.
Yes.
You got a rewatch.
Yes.
Does it still hold up?
Yes.
Love it?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I acknowledge that after watching it with you, who has...
no, I ruined it, didn't I?
A little bit.
Oh.
Just a little bit. I realized how, catered to the book reader this movie was because of the things that you were confused about.
Yes.
And I didn't want to say it while we were watching it.
No, and you did the right thing.
Because I wanted us to be able to talk about it here. But I did realize how much prior knowledge I had of these characters and how the things that they skip over in the movie that are in the book, they just assume that you already know that, which isn't a great thing for a movie to do because you have to assume
it's a failure on the part of the script, I'd say.
Yeah. And I think that there were parts that I kind of wished they had gone into a little bit more detail on. Because they were some of my favorite parts of the book, but I do think that it was a very well done movie. And I think it goes well with the book.
With the book, though.
Well, yes, which I think is not great, but I did think that it was a really good ode to the source material.
Can a movie just be an ode to the source material? Is relying on your audience to also read a novel fair?
No.
I said failure, but I don't think this movie is a failure. To my experience...
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just launched into it.
Well, I think we're getting right into it,
Yeah.
and I think that's good because this might be a disorganized episode, because you know how I often come with several essays prepared because that's how I work. I don't have that today because this movie, I don't know. I don't know what my take exactly is. So we had trouble watching it, first of all.
Oh my God, I was ready to give up and be like, let's just re-record the pre-episode because
But not just that. You were sleepy, so we couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
And we ended up watching it in 2 sittings, which I think for the first time, that was for the best.
Yeah?
Because the first half of the movie, I hated. Not just I don't get it. I thought it was very bad, and I thought it was the worst movie we've done on the show this year.
Oh, okay.
The second half, I didn't love it.
Okay.
But I was very far from... I was somewhere in the middle,
Okay.
which is
I'll
where people are on most movies,
Yes.
right? And there were some interesting things that I'm not sure how I feel about them. But like I often say... I would rather be confused or unsure about a movie than just have them make no choices and be bored and have it just be a part of a formula. This movie made some choices that I found very interesting. I don't know if I like them, though.
Okay.
Maybe I hate them, maybe I love them, but if nothing else, it made choices that interests an audience.
Right.
And that one thing I think that we're kind of both talking about kind of tangentially we will address. And we kind of already spoiled a bunch, but this is a spoiler zone. So
yeah, exactly.
Be ready for that.
We're going to spoil it.
So my first question.
Yeah.
Is this movie, outside of having one song in it, related to Taylor Swift in other ways?
No. Blake Lively and Taylor Swift are like best friends.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I think that they got the Taylor Swift song just based on that.
This movie reminds me of her. So I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan. I know a good bit about her from you because you are, again, a super fan.
I am a Taylor Swift super fan, yes.
Do you find the aesthetic of this movie reminiscent of her and her videos? Or why, to someone as an outsider, why does this movie remind me so much of her? And not the subject matter.
Oh, it's a hard question.
It looks like Taylor Swift to me.
Okay.
But nobody looks like her.
No.
So I don't know what I'm basing that on. Maybe maybe you have more insight into that than I do.
That's so funny because I really, when I read the book, I did not think about Taylor Swift. The use of the Taylor Swift song in this was beautiful and perfect, and I sobbed through it in the movie theater. But I think it's just because the movie was geared towards kind of the audience that Taylor Swift is also very popular with.
Sure.
And I feel like it's got an aesthetic, the movie, for sure. And I feel maybe videos, maybe outfits she's worn, style wise, maybe that's
definitely what it is. It's visually, not the subject matter or the performances or anything like that. When we are in Lily Blossom Bloom's flower shop, I'm like, oh, this looks like a Taylor Swift video to me.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that a lot. And and I think because it's very much a 30s, 40s woman that it's kind of geared towards, this whole story and most of Colleen Hoover's books, I feel like that's going to be a Taylor Swift audience. And so you are kind of basing some things on that. And I could see this reminding you of kind of that feeling.
So let's talk about it visually first off. Is that another part of it that you really enjoyed?
I did. I really feel like they did a good job of casting. I think that a lot of the things that were described in the book, they did a really good job of showing like it was in the book, like Lily and Ryle's apartment and the sister's apartment and the flower shop and what everybody kind of looked like, because Lily has red hair in the book as well. I really thought they did a good job making it look like I thought it would look.
Good, because I guess anytime you read something and you see the movie and you're like, yep, that's what I pictured, they're doing something right.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that I wish had been explained a little bit more. You don't get an explanation as to why everyone is so rich.
So I took that as their family before they were surgeon and... Well, Hassan Minaj's character is super rich. Yeah. And then the other dude's a surgeon. And I assume they had family wealth, as did Lily Blossom Bloom.
Yeah. So big part of the story is that Marshall, who's played by Hassan Minaj, is he was struggling, and he met Alyssa before he had done really anything. I think they met in college or just after.
That I knew. They do mention that.
Yeah, but he sold an app for $1 billion or something.
I kind of assumed that.
Yeah, so I just kind of
he was a venture capitalist.
Yeah, and now I think he just funds other people's apps. Yeah, basically. But he sold an app out of college, basically, that funded the rest of his life and his children's lives, basically. Right. So I kind of wish there were there are a few character context clues that I knew that I feel would have actually helped in moments like that.
That part didn't bother me because I felt like I didn't need more insight into him because I found Hassan's character incredibly annoying and didn't want him on screen.
Oh.
As someone who has watched almost everything he's been in, including his own show, and like him very much. I like his stand-up. I liked, what was that show called? Patriot Act? Anyways, the show he used to have, I enjoyed that a lot. I like him. Did not like him in this. Did you like him in this?
I liked him in this.
Oh, I really got annoyed with him.
But I think it's because he was exactly what I pictured when I pictured Marshall while reading the book.
So is it a good job of being the book character, or is it a likable character?
I think it's more of a good job being the book character.
Okay.
But I like, that's how I imagined him.
Sure.
Was like a Hassan Minaj type.
I realized that I called him Hassan like we're just friends.
Yeah. And it is called Patriot Act.
That was my thing of the fortnight years ago on the show. But back to the visuals of this movie. I don't like it, and I don't know why. You could just be like, oh, this is a 40-year-old man who loves old kung fu movies. Of course he hates how this looks. But I'm still self-aware enough to know that it seems well constructed. There's nothing wrong with the direction or the cinematography. It's a pretty movie.
It's gorgeous. Especially that opening shot.
Oh, like the helicopter?
Yeah, over the, like, I assume it's like Connecticut?
Sure. But that's pretty because that place is pretty. I didn't find the direction adding anything. And I wonder if it's just a personal preference that I don't love the aesthetic of like the flower shop and all of those kinds of things. And maybe it's just a choice that like, I don't like that particular look. So that's why I don't like the movie. But the more I watched, the more I found myself disinterested with the direction. And that can be a good thing. Like, you don't want the director to be so
obvious.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. Sometimes when the camera is moving and you don't notice, that's when it's at its strongest. It's doing all these things that you can't even tell it's doing. And those are some amazing movies. In this one, the direction and cinematography does blend in, but I feel like maybe it's not blending in as much as it is overpowered with the set deck. Like, what is on screen in a still, there's so much of it, and it is such a choice of it in a very specific style that it overpowered the more like cinematic elements. The style of the movie and the people in the movie was greater than that of it as a movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see that.
But then I don't know, does that make it great? Did the director do a very good job then? Because that's what it's going for? So that's one of those things where I don't have a strong take. I'm not like, well, this director was terrible. Or I'm not like, it was great. I don't know. I didn't love it, but it was good. So the movie overall has me feeling like that in a bunch of different ways where I'm like, yeah, I see what you're doing. And I think you succeeded at doing that thing. I just don't know if I like it, which is in a weird place because it makes me think about me, the person, and less like the film critic or whatever we're doing here. Because when a movie is terribly put together and I pick it apart and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That's what a film nerd does. But when I don't like this, I'm like, why don't I like it? And do I have something... I don't want to be one of those guys who's like, oh, this is a girl's movie. Yeah, I don't like it. Because like my favorite movies are all like Audrey Hepburn movies and stuff. Yeah. But there's something about this. Maybe it felt more manufactured. Maybe it's that throughout the movie, and maybe I'm kind of jumping to the end now, I felt that this movie was about making points and choices, which it does successfully, and less about telling a story. And that's what I look for in the movie over everything, even if it's doing some things and making points that is like, well done, and I agree with you. But in the end, I'm like, yeah, but I just didn't like the story. I didn't think it was, these characters were full characters that I was engrossed in. I didn't buy into them individually. I bought into the idea of what this movie was about more than these specific characters.
Okay.
Is that a success or a failure? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I'm a little
interesting.
confused about this one.
It's interesting to hear you talk about it as someone with no like attachment to it previously.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like completely unable to be objective because I love the book, and I was like so hotly anticipating this movie and looking forward to it, and it was interesting. It's interesting to hear your perspective just because like I can't be objective about it, right? Like I knew I was gonna like it. I from what I had heard about it beforehand, I knew like it was gonna be exactly what book lovers wanted. And yeah, I don't know. And I went with friend of the show, Kim, and she hadn't read the book, but it also like hit her very emotionally, just going through an emotional time herself. So I think neither of us really looked at it that critically after.
And there were parts, I guess, why are we talking about it like we're going to save the spoilers for later?
No, we're spoiling it.
We usually start out a little slower. But,
True.
So there were parts, like for instance, when she says, I named the baby Emerson, gives him the baby, he's full of joy, and she says, I want a divorce.
Yeah.
I was somewhere between applauding and crying, and it did neither. But like the emotional core of that got me. And the emotional journey of not this character, but someone in that spot got me. But this character herself, I was like, yeah, whatever.
Oh.
I was reacting more to her journey and extrapolating that journey to many other people and feeling that far more than I felt for anyone actually on the screen.
Right.
I was just happy that this story is being told, and in a somewhat novel way. We'll talk about that. And I was happy about that, but then I was like, yeah, but I didn't love this.
Yeah.
Like many of the movies we've talked about where I say like, this isn't a great job of this one thing. Like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants comes up to me.
Yeah.
There were so many things that could have made that
Blake Lively movie.
Yeah, maybe that's why that was on my mind. There were so many things that could make that movie so much better.
True, yeah.
But I was happy about it because there's not enough female friendship movies. And so when you get one that's like, yeah, that's pretty good, you're happy about it.
Yeah.
And I feel that about this.
Yeah.
There's not anyone telling the story better. Oh, that's not true. There's not many big budget movies telling this story better.
True. And people who have a platform and people who bring like people into movie theaters, especially in this day and age when everyone's streaming everything, I definitely think this is like, it's an important subject matter. And I think it was done like fairly well.
I'd agree. It was done fairly well. More people should tell a story like this, and then through competition, it's going to get better, and you're going to get, there are good examples of this, and I thought this was just an example of it.
I think it's a good example of it. You had a lot of problems with the rooftop scene at the beginning of the movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
Do you want to know something?
Sure, yes.
Ryan Reynolds wrote that.
Oh, it should have been in a Deadpool movie. It was so fast. Like, you're a neurosurgeon? Why are you laughing at that? My name's funny. Lily Blossom Bloom. My dad's dead. Oh, I killed someone today, and the other boy's life is destroyed. I had sex with a homeless man. What?
Yeah.
Why?
It didn't seem to fit the rest of the movie.
No. But that's the beginning of the movie, so that's what you're starting off with. And it was so much. Once we learn about Atlas later, we're like, wait, you just said, like, I had sex with some homeless man? Like, I lost my virginity to a homeless boy. And
it was in the book. That's, like, how it's phrased in the book. So that is, like, a direct line.
That doesn't change.
No.
That's a shitty thing to say.
It's a shitty thing to say, yeah.
That's how you define
Why are
them?
you
were in love with
that
this
for
person.
The most shock?
Yeah. And that's what it seemed like her character was. It's like, look at me. I'm a free spirit.
Yeah.
Get it? And I'm throwing in your face constantly.
Yeah.
If my inability to use conditioner doesn't show you, all of these other things
brush.
will.
I wanted to brush Blake Lively's hair the entire movie.
Okay, so then this is another thing that, being who I am, I shouldn't have any opinion on this. What do you think about how she was dressed and hair and such? It just seems like a very odd series of choices to me.
So in the book, she wears a lot of overalls, and I feel like they did that.
Does the book take place? It's modern?
Yeah, the book is modern. They aged up the characters significantly just due to the subject matter.
Due to the subject matter or due to the casting?
Due to the subject matter.
But the book was about that. I don't know if I see a reason for that, like, unless they were like 15-year-olds.
They were pretty young. Like, they aged them up by
young, 11 or 25?
I think it was like early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't see a reason why this story would be like shocking if she's 24 and not whatever she is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I
just assumed they got Blake Lively and they're like, all right, that's the age now because we got a big name.
I think they could have made her play younger for sure, but...
What do you mean play younger?
But I mean like
still cast her, but just say like, hey, I'm 21.
Yeah, like I feel like they could have done that, but...
But they don't... Did they tell us her age in any way?
Not really.
So then I'm confused.
I don't know. The other thing was that when the book came out and then when it got really, really popular, which was like 5 to 8 years after the book was released, that everyone like got on it and started like really buying it and everything and reading it.
Was it because you talked about it on this podcast?
Yes. I am the reason that Colleen Hoover has like 2 more feature pictures coming out. You're welcome, Colleen. No, so Colleen Hoover wrote this book. Didn't Google that like to be a neurosurgeon is like 10 years of med school. And so being 25, 22, 25, there are no 25-year-old neurosurgeons.
Oh, he was a 25-year-old neurosurgeon.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So there were some things that like just don't make any sense.
Might have been a Doogie type.
Maybe. But she said in interviews before this, like, yeah, I just didn't Google and I didn't realize how much school neurosurgeons do and that's not like possible to be like an under 25 neurosurgeon. So she's like come out and said that and she's like, yeah, no. So I think they aged everyone up just based on that too. I don't know. I don't have a good reason, but yeah. And I know that Blake Lively dressed herself for a lot of this, but like it was just a little too eclectic for me. Like, give me a solid colored coat. Like
she matched her hair a lot.
She did match her. There was too much orange and brown in this movie.
There was a lot. And
I personally do not like those colors on myself, or like I'm never going to pick an outfit based on that. But I just like, it just didn't work for me. It was all of her outfits were like pattern on pattern. And you got like just the oddest assortment of silhouettes. And I wasn't into it as much. I feel like the overalls that she wears worked because you're working in a flower shop. You're doing like some dirty work.
Were they?
What?
Working in a flower shop? Where were this flower shop is like meticulously planned out on everything on the walls. But you know what they didn't have much of? Like flowers.
There were flowers in the...
Yeah, but there have like a few flowers in a vase in front of a picture. It's not like any flower shop I've seen in an actual world.
Okay, yeah. Like it was supposed to be... There was a lot more in the book, obviously, about like her like design abilities and like how she puts together like a bouquet and stuff. And
it seemed very much like one of those shops where it is somebody who is usually the child of someone very rich, and then they open up their own boutique and there's like 4 dresses on one rack. Yeah. And you're like, how are you in business?
Mom.
It seemed like one of those places where you're like, wow, this place is beautiful. You sell like 6 roses a day here?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, yeah. In my notes, it just says, this is the first meeting. He comes in, kicks a chair, tells her to get off the ledge, and then gets on the ledge himself.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then says, let's have sex. And she says, I'm an unreliable narrator. So then later on, when she is, I can be like, oh, so they told me, so I can't be upset with the movie lying to me.
Yep.
And then in the flashback, I said, they shouldn't allow these adults to ride the school bus with all the kids. They did not look
they looked
like
so much
children.
Older than everyone else. Yeah.
I didn't get a good look at the other kids, but they might have been adults as well. But that man was a man.
Yeah.
He should have been driving the school bus, not riding on it.
Yeah, he should have been in charge of all the children.
So they aged up everybody, it looks like.
Yeah.
That should have been the age of the neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's like some interesting choices.
You know what else is a really interesting choice? Going to karaoke and choosing Praise You, which has like 2 sentences in it.
Like, I don't even know how long that song is.
That's such a dick move. And like, okay, now let's all just listen to the music.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of music, the music in this does the heavy lifting.
It really does, yeah.
And that is something that I'm not a fan of.
No,
because I think we had this conversation just the other week about how the score should underscore. It should add to and maybe elaborate on the feelings that the characters are creating through dialogue and through acting. And here I felt like when things were falling flat, they just put on a song that makes you feel that way. And they would rely on the music way too much. This is just a personal choice, but I don't think you should ever put lyrics underneath dialogue.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have people singing while the actors are talking. I don't know. That's what I always thought, and that's how it used to be, but here we are.
In my day.
I remember when I was helping out someone on a movie they were working on, I was editing and they said, okay, now this song goes here. And I was like, you won't be able to hear any of the dialogue because it's all lyrics. And then we saw it in the theater and I was like, I couldn't hear any of the dialogue because there's all these lyrics.
Yeah.
So that stuck with me and I projected that onto this movie. Whose equestrian themed birthday were they at?
Alyssa.
Okay.
It's Jenny Slade's birthday. It was just supposed to be like ridiculous and over the top money. And it's supposed to be the first time that Lily really understands just how rich they are.
So is that a parody of the opulence of the rich? That they have like riders bringing them hors d'oeuvres?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But it was just supposed to be like silly and over the top and crazy.
Okay.
And it's a shame that she only stayed for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because then she went to go make out upstairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That's one thing that does bother me about this movie with the subject matter that it has later on, how it's like a fun character trait that she'd be like, don't touch me. Just kidding. Let's make out. The whole thing of confusing like consent with playing hard to get is maybe not a good choice for a movie like this.
That is something that bothered me as
there
well.
was multiple times where she'd be like, don't touch me, we can't do anything, I'm just gonna take my clothes off though.
Yeah,
that's a weird line to blur in a movie that deals with the things that come later.
Yeah, when you're dealing with consent and domestic violence and like,
don't have playing hard to get. It's like a flirty, fun thing.
Yeah. Don't have her like saying no and like in like a fun, playful way where she doesn't mean it. Because the consent is a very big part of this movie. And it does seem like that they're very trivial with it.
Because there's several times where she says no and he keeps going and she's really into that. Mm-hmm. And then we get like the big scene where she's saying no and he keeps going. And it's a weird thing, an unnecessary thing to bring in to confuse. Mm-hmm. It's an odd choice. I also just think that's like not good writing.
Right.
So like, don't touch me. Just kidding. Like that's.
Yeah.
I get she's a free spirit because she's always has these like poetic musings and speeches. In the first half, she always gives these speeches about how like quirky she is. And they really bothered me. And I really, really disliked her character for the first half of this movie.
Yeah, I could tell. I've never seen you actively frown at a movie for like extended periods of time.
I hated her.
Yeah.
And it made me very upset because I knew that she was going to be the victim of something. Mm-hmm. I don't really know what the movie's about, but I knew that was coming. So it made me then angry at the movie of like, why would you not want me on her side? Why are you actively making her just insufferable? All of their banter, her and Ryle Kincaid, which is another just, these names seem like real book names.
Yeah, they are. Totally.
Real book names.
Totally like, just book names.
When I was teaching grade 12 English, and these are the names that the kids would give their characters a lot. all the banter between Lily Blossom Bloom and Ryle Kincaid before they got together, when they're like, we're just friends, like, oh, but we talk naked truths, and like, I just need one kiss to get you out of my system. All of that was utterly insufferable to me. I really disliked it. I think it was meant to be like flirty and fun, and I did not care for it. Did you like just in the movie, the two of them before they got together? Was that fun?
It was like more fun in the book. It was a little cringe.
Yeah, that's why.
At the beginning. No. At the beginning, it was very, very cringe. Like the rooftop scene, watching it again and then watching you react to it was very cringy.
Almost always, I try to have no reactions and I try to make my notes away from you, but my face said a lot in this one. And
you looked like you were going to throw up for the first hour of the movie.
I did not like the first hour of this movie. The best things of the first, maybe the entire movie, I think was young Lily and Atlas.
Yeah.
I saw something there, and then when that happened, I'd be like, oh, this movie does know how to make a couple
likable
get together.
Yeah.
Because they had not similar, but it's similar in the idea that we see them meet, we see them fall in love. Mm-hmm. And I wanted them to get together. Mm-hmm. But then I was thinking, because we then see where Ryle's character goes, are we meant to hate everything about them getting together? I don't think so, right?
No.
Because I started going into some interesting thought processes at the end. Because once I knew about the the unreliable narrator, all that business, then I started thinking, wait, was it actually really clever? And it made me hate Ryle and who Lily is with Ryle before they even got together, because I did hate them. But I liked her very much when she was with Atlas. Mm-hmm. But then I realized maybe it was the actors. Maybe I don't love
Justin Baldoni. Ryle?
Him and Blake Lively. Maybe I don't like them. I don't know. I didn't like them in this. I know that much. Neither of them, I can't look at and be like, oh, that they were bad at acting. I don't think that's it. I think I just disliked the characters.
Yeah, I felt like some of the direction in their relationship wasn't great. It felt like the choices that were made weren't.
Like acting-wise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not and direction-wise. I didn't think that it was done as well as it could be.
It wasn't done as well as the other relationship, which is the B storyline, which I found far more compelling.
Yeah, and in the book, it is more compelling. You do kind of fall in love with Lily and Ryle together before you know about Atlas coming back into things.
Okay, yeah. I did not experience that.
Yeah, the book really gets you into their relationship, and you're rooting for them, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, but also this, and then you're like, oh, who's better? It's a real choose situation, right?
Oh, okay.
And then you find out about domestic violence, and you see his reaction to things, and you're like, maybe not Ryle.
Oh, see, I was at the point where homeless teenager Atlas seemed like a way better choice than millionaire neurosurgeon Ryle, because of how insufferable Lily becomes.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, maybe she just grew up to be a real flake. That's possible.
She kind of does seem like a flake. Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I was kind of sad about was in the book, there's a lot more story when she shows up at the restaurant after she runs away from Ryle in the rain. And he takes her to his house, and then he realizes that he has to run back to the restaurant or something, and she meets his friends and has a whole conversation, and she finds out that there is no girlfriend, because Atlas talks about a girlfriend.
Yes.
And I can't remember her name now, but she finds out, she's like, oh, does his girlfriend come to poker night? Because they came over for poker night. It was a weekly thing, and he forgot what day it was. And they were like, who? And they were like, he doesn't have a girlfriend. He doesn't date anybody. And
she's still in love with you, Lily Blossom.
Yeah. So she finds out this little tidbit and keeps it to herself for a little bit. And then the relationship between them kind of progresses, and you get a lot more of them than we got in the movie. And I'm a little sad, because it is kind of a beautiful relationship that grows.
That's definitely something. I don't know who Atlas is.
Yeah.
He's just not in this movie.
Yeah.
And I would like to know.
There's also in the beginning a lot more about his cooking skills. Like, because he like has shitty parents and like was kind of on his own. He like learned to cook out of necessity, and he like
necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
As Atlas told me. I think they wrote that for this.
Probably.
That was a new line.
Yeah, it's a brand new line. Nobody's ever said it before. And then also like being in the army, and he like learns about other foods and like that kind of thing. And like, so you kind of get this journey of like how he becomes a restaurant owner and like a chef. And you didn't really get anything about Atlas in this movie. And I'm
because
very sad about it.
Now I'm like, oh, he's rich too.
Yeah.
Everyone in this movie, although maybe we could say everyone in the movies you've picked, 200 some episodes of this, almost always rich people.
Yeah.
I also don't like when he's so in love, he doesn't care if his frittata burns. That's love. I dislike movies that do that, where something's happening, they're like, oh, that's gonna burn. And he's like, I don't care. I just want to kiss you instead.
Yeah. That
happens a lot in movies, and that is also lazy writing, I think.
It's also not a thing that happens in the real world.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, let me just turn that off.
Yeah.
We can continue making
out
out now.
Burn my house down because we're kissing.
And then it burns, and he starts swinging.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah.
She warned you. She fucking warned you.
She told you. Yeah.
So maybe we should get into that now.
Okay.
So when he accidentally, and I'm quoting now, hits her, I actually asked you, and we usually don't talk in the movies.
No.
But I said,
save it for the podcast.
I said, that was an accident though, right? Did I miss it? And you were like, and I said, as the movie showed this, I was very specific.
Yes.
I said, as the movie showed this one instance, it is meant to play as an accident, correct? And you said yes. And then I was like, okay, that's a weird complication, because I then got like, that's where this movie's going. Mm-hmm. And why would you make it start out with an accident? And then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
And then when it's revealed that we see another like quote unquote accident when she falls down the stairs.
Yeah.
And what we see on screen is an accident. Mm-hmm. Very much so. She just fell. Mm-hmm. And then we get later in the movie, through kind of flashbacky sequences, it's revealed that they were not accidents at all. It was intentional, and he is abusive and has been for some time. And then I was like, oh shit, they did this thing where we are seeing it as she maybe not feels herself, but the way she presents it to the world, and is also lying to herself.
Yes.
And that, I was like, oh, that's really good. That's really clever. That is showing insight into this character that we don't have, because we don't have narration. This isn't a book where we have an omniscient view into her. We don't have that. We can only see what the movie is showing us. So that is a very innovative way of showing us how she feels in like a really internalized way that movies haven't done. Not often. Not in this subject matter that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I thought that was brilliant. And then I was like, but wait a minute. It's also like super manipulative, because they are just lying to you.
Yeah.
But she is lying to herself. So then I'm like, oh, do I forgive it?
And she's lying to everyone else.
She is.
Because, and I think this goes back to, and I don't, like, I've never been physically abused. I, like, have never gone through that. But I do think that there's a certain psychological thing that you go through when you're defending your partner, and when you're saying, like, no, like, he just like freaked out because he burnt his hand, and my face was in the wrong place at the wrong time when his arm came by. And like it's like it was totally an accident. And when we first see that scene happen, and when we see it happen in like real time, you do see this like rosy, it was an accident view of it. And then when she's coming to terms with the fact that like Ryle is abusive, and Ryle has been hurting you on purpose, maybe not on purpose, but like in anger,
on purpose,
yeah, like
that's on purpose.
He's hitting you.
Have control of yourself.
Yes. So like when she's starting to come to terms with that, and she's left and she's run away, and she's like sitting there like realizing what actually happened, you see the actual versions of this, and I found that really powerful.
Yes.
And it was a really amazing way to demonstrate what happens to someone when they are being abused by someone that they love. Because there's the denial, there's the like instant explanation of what happened and like how it was an accident or how they didn't mean it. And then all of a sudden you come to terms with it, and or like down the road you come to terms with it, and it's very much like eye-opening, and you see absolutely everything that happened in that relationship through a completely different lens. And that's kind of what happens when she's sitting in the car in the rain. Yeah. I found it very powerful.
I'd agree. You know, I'm not sure if I agree. It's very interesting. Mm-hmm. It is a great way to show that character's justification for his, that is Lily's justification for Ryle's actions, and how that kind of explaining away of things becomes so internalized that she herself believes it. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it even more difficult to extract yourself from that kind of situation. It does all of that very well. But someone who hasn't read the book, when I get the reveal, it was less of a like, oh, that's the power of it, and more of a like, well, you're just kind of tricking me and lying to me a little bit.
Yeah. So in the book, it is like more graphic and there are more instances. And I think that the way that they filmed the like instances of domestic violence, I think they did a really good job, because the book goes into some detail, and like the stuff that we do get to see is a lot less graphic than it was in the book. And I think like the rating of the movie would be one piece, and then also like I don't know that you want to show like the gore that comes along with that.
And I think that is a good choice for another reason, because when we do have stories of an abusive husband, partner, whatever, they tend to be much bigger. Mm-hmm. And there isn't much of a spectrum of those relationships shown. So showing it, I don't want to diminish what this character goes through, but not as...
It's not like a Hollywood size abuse, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's not as big as you often see in movies, and seemingly as big as it was in the book. Mm-hmm. By having it this way, it kind of shows that spectrum and shows that like none of this is acceptable. Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. He hit me once. Like, no, that's a big deal too. Mm-hmm. All of it's a big deal. So I do like that they didn't go as big for that reason too.
Yeah.
And it's also just hard to watch.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no.
Like I can watch horror movies and stuff, but this is like, it's different when it's like this,
it's different,
right?
And it feels different when you're watching it. And I definitely... watching it for the first time in the theater, and I feel like I keep calling back to this, but like because it was the first time I saw it, I was annoyed halfway through the movie when when we saw what Lily was telling herself basically happened in those first shots of domestic violence. I was like, okay, but like they really softened it. And then when it comes back around and she's sitting in the car in the rain, I was like, there it is. Okay, good job.
Yeah, see, I was annoyed too, because I was like, why would you start off with an accident and then lead into the real stuff? I guess that's my issue with it. And you can't have it both ways, because doing the reveal later, you have to put up with some like being upset until that reveal.
Yeah.
But it is, if nothing else, interesting. Mm-hmm. And by far the most interesting thing of this entire movie was the choice to show us the first time through her memory rather than the live actuality of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The like first shots of all of those instances were like really well done when you see it at the end. Mm-hmm. For sure.
But it also made me upset with when she said at the beginning, I'm an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm fun and quirky, but also I am repressing horrible trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know that like there's a lot of trauma there for both her and Atlas. And so in the book, like we see this scene in the movie of Lily's father like holding her mother down. We see that a few times throughout the movie. In the book, Atlas starts sleeping in Lily's room because it's winter and because he's in this old abandoned house that has no heating or anything, and it's like too cold for him to stay in there. So he sneaks into her room and sleeps like multiple nights in a row. And Lily gets up in the middle of the night because she hears her parents yelling, and she goes down and she gets involved and she tries to stop them. And Atlas is standing there when she looks up, and he sees that her dad is doing this. And that's part of the reason why Atlas reacts like he does when he sees Lily's face in Ryle's hand.
Yeah.
So it like backs it up. So these are like the moments that Atlas had cut that like, no, it means a lot more.
That definitely does, because
like it means something.
In my notes, I wrote, Atlas shouldn't have attacked him.
No, so it's because he knows that her mother was abused by her father, that then he just assumes that because his hand is bandaged and her eye is black, that she's in that same relationship, basically. Yeah. Like she has become her mother. And you don't get that in the movie. And I was really upset about that. And that was one of the things that I told Kim, because she was also like, why did Atlas punch him? Because it seemed very unprovoked.
Yeah, because
and it's a wild assumption to make.
The movie makes it seem like he is in the wrong, because that also frustrated me, because it's like, I know it's going somewhere, but at this point it has been accidental, because that's what we as viewers see. And then Atlas jumps to this conclusion where it made you go like, wait, is Ryle the victim here? And that's a weird thing to put in. That's a weird
thing to put in. And I don't know, like, what that decision, like, why that decision was made. But that was one thing that I was, like, really upset that they didn't include, because it just explains who Atlas is so much earlier in the movie. And you really get, it's, like, part of Atlas and Lily being bonded is that he now knows what's going on in her house. And he, like, knows what she's going through, and he's a support for her. And then like just like Atlas attacking Ryle seemingly unprovoked was very strange.
Yeah
What did you think of the end of the movie?
It did have one of the best title reveals I've ever so I had this joke that I always say, if in a movie they ever say the title of the movie, you should stand and applaud in the theater. Because I don't actually do it. It's just a funny joke.
We do it on the couch at home sometimes.
But this one, when she said, it ends with us, that got me. I was like, oh yeah.
That final scene when she, and I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but like when she hands the baby to Ryle because she knows that he will not react because he's holding his daughter, and then gives him the like, I want divorce. I want divorce.
I want divorce.
I want a divorce. And then like, what would you tell your daughter if all of these things had happened to her and from her partner? And you can see like, this is like some of the best acting in the movie, I think, that Ryle does, is because you can see,
I'd agree.
You can see the anger, you can see the hurt, you can see the frustration, and you can see him clocking the fact that he is holding his daughter and he cannot like freak out. And like,
also, I think there was something of him realizing she's correct.
Yeah.
I think that was in there too.
And you can see all of that happen on his face when he doesn't say anything. And I thought this scene was really, really well done.
I think it was the best scene of those two, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I also kind of, the other thing that I missed was they get married in Vegas, and Marshall and Alyssa, they're like rich. So they charter the private jet and they all go to Vegas, and it's like a big party. But like, I feel like they glossed over that. It was like a really fun scene because you get to see the four of them like together.
I'm probably fine with that.
But yeah, so
I didn't like them.
Oh,
I liked Jenny Slate, I guess, the best.
They're supposed to be big and obnoxious. That's kind of how they are in the books too, but it's fun.
I can't be convinced of not liking someone and then they're going like, oh, they're supposed to be obnoxious. I was like, okay, well, they are. I don't like it.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I liked the ending. I was torn. I really think they could have ended it with, it ends with us, you and me, baby girl. Like, that scene was so powerful that...
Was there a scene after?
There was.
I don't even remember that. So it should have ended
It should have ended there.
Should have ended with them.
It should have ended with them. It was right in the title. So you get Lily and her mom and Emmy at the grave, and she leaves the blank eulogy napkin.
Oh, yes.
And then you get Atlas at the market seeing her again.
Right.
And that's like leading into the next book, basically. Like,
the next movie. Has that been greenlit?
I don't think it's going to happen since Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively are suing each other.
Right. Should we wrap up on this? And then I want to hear, because I don't follow movie stuff outside of what's on the screen, so you can tell me about that.
Yeah.
So overall, you still love it?
I still love it. I think it has its flaws. You know, nothing's perfect. But I really...
There's a few things that are... Remember The Shining? Ooh. Chungking Express? That was pretty perfect.
But I stand by this, and I think it's a very powerful movie, and I think it talks about a very important subject, and it makes a subject that's very difficult accessible and kind of understandable for people who may not have experienced it or who may be supporting someone going through it but haven't experienced it themselves. Like, I think it's a really interesting view into this kind of relationship and just the things that these people who are experiencing it go through. And I think that that is a really important story to tell. And I think that the choices that were made in some scenes were kind of disappointing, but I think that overall the movie did a really good job and was great.
I agree with 90% of what you just said.
Was it the "it was great" part?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. Everything else, you know what? This is one of those movies where we fundamentally agree on everything except for like a rating out of 10 at the end. Is probably going to be like pretty discrepant that way, but everything else we're like, yeah, I'd agree with everything you're saying.
Absolutely.
Like, I think I already talked about what I didn't like, and I didn't love how every character had to be like everything. Like, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm quirky and I'm a free spirit. And then he's like, I'm a soap opera handsome and super ripped and a neurosurgeon. But you know what? I'm also fun and I wear a onesie to the bar. Like, those things didn't go together. And not like they don't go together in a person. They didn't go together in him. He looked awkward when he was like in a onesie at the bar.
Yeah.
Also, I couldn't picture him going through med school or doing an operation.
Yeah.
And it's not just because you're handsome. It's this character. I don't know who this character is.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know who she is.
Yeah.
I don't get a grasp of any of the characters outside of teenage Atlas. And then adult Atlas, we don't know anything about, but that's just because it's not in there. That wasn't a performance thing on his behalf.
And I think by skipping all of the Atlas pre-story and like all of that with teenage Atlas, we skip a lot of who Lily is.
Yeah.
Because like all of the young Lily and young Atlas stuff is all together. So it's like you cut all the Atlas stuff, you're cutting a lot of Lily stuff.
But there has to be a way to do it. When you are a screenwriter, that is your job. It's to adapt that and get to the heart of it more quickly, because you don't have the time of a novel.
Oh,
that's
of course.
more like a season of a TV show to get all of that content. And it can't just be like, well, in the book it was all this, but we don't have time for it in the movie, so we can't do it. No, you have to figure out a way, or you have to cut things, and you have to make those choices. From what it sounds like, they didn't choose wisely in all of those cases. But that was my my least favorite stuff. But what I did like is that it does get kind of tropey in the sense of it's a melodrama, right? And it does have some tropes that we've seen many times before. But how it unfolds with that unreliable narrator stuff, and that this story of abuse is different, less obvious than what we usually see. that was very effective in showing kind of the insidiousness of domestic violence. And with that unreliable narrator part, you can see how it's invisible at times, right? And that was the most effective part. It's effective in what it's saying about domestic violence and people who have to suffer through it and survive, and people who perpetrate it. That is effective. Is it effective in these characters specifically? I don't think so. Not really, because I just don't know who they are. I don't really know what drives them. Mm-hmm. But it does make good points on a subject matter that is more universal. So that's something that is very tricky to do, but it doesn't do what movies can usually do of like have a good meet cute. That it can't do at all. It fails miserably. Have two very good looking people fall in love and us want them to be together. I dislike them very much together, but it does something that's way more difficult and is successful there. So like, is this a good movie? I don't know. I don't think it's a good movie in the sense that the script and the acting and the direction I didn't care for. Does it make a very good point in an interesting way that helps kind of elucidate things about the world we live in, which is a tricky thing for a movie to do, but I think something that the best movies do that. This movie, yes, it does do that, but it can't do the easy stuff. So I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's an interesting movie, and I'm glad I saw it. So I think that's a victory. If you're happy you saw a movie, then that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
So you were going to tell me, because the only thing I had heard was a long time ago, Blake Lively was upset about a producer credit and was suing about that. But now it's gotten to be all sorts of other stuff. So
it's not about a producer credit. She's suing Justin Baldoni for sexual harassment and severe emotional harm on the set of the movie. And he is suing the New York Times because they sided with Blake Lively for libel. So in the complaint, Blake Lively talks about how Justin Baldoni discussed her weight with her trainer and pressed her to lose weight. He shared really graphic things about his sex life apparently, but also showing her porn on the set and suggesting changes to the script that made her really uncomfortable. She felt like he went places that she wasn't comfortable with, when she an example was she was breastfeeding her child in her trailer and he barged in even though she was busy. But yeah, she just I guess felt unsafe. And so yeah, she's suing him for that. There hasn't been a lot of I don't know that it's gone to court or anything, but yeah, and then he's suing the New York Times for libel because they sided with Blake Lively. So yeah, I'm really interested to see where that goes because it is going to be so public, and I think it's going to be an interesting case of safety on film sets as well. And when you're doing a movie where you're dealing with subject matter like this, you want it to be as safe as possible when you're not filming, because it can be it can feel very uncomfortable, I bet, to film stuff like this. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry if I got any of that wrong, but that's just what I can remember from what I've seen around and this quick variety article that I skimmed. So we'll see what happens with that. But if you haven't watched the movie, well, now we told you about it. So that's on you. And we'd love to hear what you think about this movie. You can find us on Instagram at ILTYS and the number 2. You can find us on Facebook at I Love This, You Should Too -podcast. And you can email us your long form thoughts at I Love This, You Should, and the number 2 @gmail.com.
Wow, you haven't given all that stuff in a long time.
I'm surprised that it's still in my brain.
When was the last time you checked the email? What if we're getting fan mail and we didn't even know?
I do occasionally get notifications for things.
Month or so.
Yeah.
No, every 6 months maybe.
Every so often I'll get a notification and it opens. It's a backup email for something else that I have. So occasionally things go there and I have to approve them and then I take a little look through, but I have not looked probably since before Christmas. So I'm sorry if your deep, deep thoughts are sitting in the inbox. We will get to them.
Wait, now what I just realized, so everything when he's on screen I disliked. It might just be a thing of you're directing and acting and the direction really suffers when you're focused on the performance.
I think that would be a very, very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I think this may have been his first directing credit. So
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Sounds good. Cool. Well, you can't find anything on the internet about him that isn't about this lawsuit. So I don't know.
There was a book I read that then got turned into a movie. It was called 5 Feet Apart, and he directed that.
Oh, okay.
He might have done other things as well.
Oh, it says he has 14 directing credits. So
I guess he has.
Well, yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
How do we end this show? Bye.
Oh, wait, what are we doing next? Oh, it's a rebroadcast because we're on vacation. So you know what goes well with this? My favorite baseball movie, it's A League of Their Own. And that was one of our first episodes where it turned out to be I love this and Sam loved it after.
Yeah.
But I spoiled it, I guess. But go listen to it.
Surprise.
A League of Their Own. It's a great movie. Great movie.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.